I hope Mario Cristobal has kept his 10 best questions for interviewing candidates. He's going to have to dust that off and work it here in the next few weeks. Talking Canes with all of you each and every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you all stopping by. We will take your comments and questions in the chat. Cam Underwood, State of the U, does the heavy lifting for us. I just enjoy the conversation. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm good. Blessed and highly favored. So glad to be here with you guys. Talking about the Canes. So let's make it happen.
Alonzo Highsmith, the most notable name with the highest position, who is moving on to another NFL job. And then we've got the running backs coach moving on for a higher position elsewhere within the state, and secondary coach who's leaving for the NFL. So, as I notated off the top, a lot of spots to fill.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what you want to have. Kind of. You want to have a staff that is so good that eventually they get poached, right? If you look at all the coaches who coached in the realm or in Miami through the late 90s and early 2000s, right? Those are a lot of big names. If you look at a Greg Schiano, if you look at a Mark Stoops was the secondary coach. Now he's at Kentucky doing wonderful things, right? You had Ed Orgeron as an assistant. I mean, like the who's who of those coaching staffs, when you go on, 20 and 25 years, you say, oh my God, they had all these guys here. And you get guys eventually leaving to elevate, right? So you want to have that. And I said, I think last week, Miami at peak optimization should be 5 years in an NFL job, especially at the head coach level. And if you do that, have similar success along the ranks, down the line as assistants, you can get guys who go on to other things. But, Alonzo Highsmith had a long career in the front office in Green Bay, in the NFL and everything. So he came back to Miami for the GM job. I think that there was maybe a little bit of disconnect. I don't think it was 100% the job that he thought it was. I think that the scope changed when Mario came, as opposed to Manny Diaz to that role. And then he goes back to the NFL for the New England Patriots to a front office job. And again, this is a guy who's been in the NFL for a long, long time, right? And had multiple experience at multiple positions there. So, obviously, congratulations to him. Good on you. The latest one today was Jahmile Addae, the DB's coach. He will be the cornerbacks coach for the Buffalo Bills. And that's a team that's had most, or not most, but many Miami connections from the U there. If you remember the 2 seasons, or I think it was a season and a half, that Ed Reed was an assistant DB coach, was in Buffalo. If you remember, Dan Morgan got his start in the front office in Buffalo. You remember that Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator until they threw him under the bus this current year. Where? Buffalo. So, like, you see this connection between those programs, or between that program and in the league. And, good for Jahmile Addae. He's had, so many great recruiting wins, developed and coached so many great DBs and things like that. So going up to that level, I think that his coaching acumen fits, and, he can continue to elevate his career as he, goes on. But again, when you do excellently, then people are going to want to have you. And then when the opportunity arises, you can, apply, interview for that position, and ends up getting that position, in the NFL. So that's, a defensive guy, an off-field, organizational leader. And then, to the offensive side of the ball, Tim Harris Jr., who was the running backs coach, he goes back to UCF as the offensive coordinator. And I don't know what position group, but offensive coordinator / whatever there. And he had previously worked there and everything. Obviously, he's from Miami. He's the son of the great Tim Ice Harris, the coach for Booker T. Washington, and coached at a couple other schools, but really Booker T is where he's made the name for himself. And yeah, Miami's going to look in a different direction at all these positions. Obviously, we'll see about the Alonzo Highsmith position, because, like, maybe you phase that out. Again, because I think that the scope has changed with Mario, and if you don't have somebody with the gravitas of Alonzo Highsmith, the headlining recruit of one of the class that first got Miami their first national championship, that whole state of Miami, Howard Schnellenberger going into the hood and recruiting these kids that, a lot of places didn't. Like, his stature in this at this university with this program, and then with his long history of success in the NFL, it's kind of singular. So it'd be really hard, I think, to find an analogous kind of person, because there's but one Alonzo Highsmith, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? So I'd be interested to see organizationally or structurally how that kind of goes. In terms of offensive running backs coach, the name that was mentioned was Matt Merritt from USF. He's been an assistant in a couple of places, but got his start as a grad assistant in Columbus. Zeke Elliott was up there. There were a couple other players that when he was a grad assistant and analyst, he helped, recruit and develop. Obviously, he was not the coach of that position. So I'm not saying, oh, this is the guy. I didn't say that, but he was around that. But this, kind of is the ilk. And then USF's rushing game was actually pretty good. So that was the first name that was floated as potentially being the guy coming down from USF to be Miami's running backs coach. That has not been confirmed or anything, but those were early reports and returns. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of names for the DB coach here at Miami following the departure of Jahmile Addae. I saw Gio, God, I forget his last name, sorry. But he was talking about Nick Monroe from Minnesota being a name, and that's a guy who on the recruiting trail has been a known name. He's Minnesota, Penn State before that, recruiting development and things like that is really kind of top level. And even when he was at, even out of Minnesota, for his name to still be known and good in South Florida, like that means something, right? Not saying it's going to be him, but like he's a guy who, I know could fit. And for both of these positions, or all, I would like to simply remind you, and we've seen it even with Jahmile Addae, Miami is a program that can, will, and has gone to get coaches that they want up off of their good jobs elsewhere. So I'm not saying that every single coach in America is in play, but more than not, like it doesn't just have to be somebody who's out there floating free or whatever. And especially at this late hour coming into, second signing day, which is today, that like I didn't even pay any attention to. I had offsite meetings and I was running around Miami doing other stuff for the secret day job, because like our class is done, top 3, 4, whatever you want to say, but it's late in the cycle because of just how things have gone. And like, you have teams like New England, they're still undergoing some changes. Their defensive coordinator or play caller, the younger Belichick kid leaving, and whatnot, like, Bill Belichick leaving also. And so they're restructuring, but then, okay, they're going down that path and it's in the playoffs and, yada, yada. Buffalo was in the playoffs until a week and a half ago, really. So they're focused on current season. Then they look forward to, okay, like, what are we going to do to reshape? So that kind of plays a role in the timing of things. But yeah, Miami has and will go after and go get a coach up off of their good job elsewhere. So, those are just some of the names off the top of my head and everything, or the top of social media that I saw. I responded to a tweet from my boy Steve Feinberg, shout out to Gucci, and he asked, who do you want to be the DB's coach? And I quoted that and replied in all capital letters, D. V. D. DeMarcus Van Dyke, Miami alum. I don't know that that's realistic, especially since it's a DB's coach position and not a cornerback's coach position and whatnot. But again, it was asked, who do I want? And off the top of my head, that's who I want. But I can be sold in other directions because, I was a little trepidatious at first when it was like he was here for a year, then we're going to go get this guy there. And then you went and got Jahmile Addae up off of his good job at Georgia. And it's just like, well, that's actually even better than I dreamed. So, something I've focused in my personal life that kind of applies here is, when I think or contemplate or pray about something, I say this or something better, Lord, because I know what I want, but there might be machinations that are going to put something better than what I want or have in my sphere of influence and knowledge. And this could be one of those situations. So I might want DVD or whomever else, or they can push for Nick Monroe, or it could be the Matt Merritt at running back, but then it's just like, well, you wanted this, but I got you that. And I think that we're, going to be in a good spot. I did see some of the tweets from, players on the roster, like DJ Pickett's a 5-star recruit in the 25 class. He said, it's still all go Canes. I saw Zaquan Patterson, early enrollee safety from Chaminade Madonna, just tweeted wow with the, WOW period and everything. I get it. That's the guy who recruited you. You want to play for him. I get it. I understand. But hey, man, he's going to move on. I'm going to trust the process. Mario Cristobol being one of the most fastidious and detail-oriented people around, he's going to go get, I believe, a person who is going to fit and be a high caliber, high quality coach. So yeah, it's going to be a change in who the individual is, but I'm not really that concerned about it.
Tons of Group of 5 players signed today, as you might imagine. Purdue, Nebraska, Washington are the only Power 5s that I see jumping up with a signee, although the list on 247 Sports that I typically go to, there are probably further players than their list goes, because this is still National Signing Day, so there are still players out there that have signed today. The South Florida rushing attack, 33rd in the nation in rushing per game.
It's not bad, kids. Not bad
Although
at all.
I'm going to say that they must have, let me try to not put two words together at the same time. They must have run the ball a lot, because they're 85th in yards per rush.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a function of a lot of things, but like Miami has a better offensive line and better talent, you think, at the running back position. And so similar scheme with a better coach, is going to, or with better players, is going to engender better success. If that is the route that is gone at that position. So yeah, we shall see on that, but yeah. And, like Mario wants to run the ball, even, bringing in Cam Ward and everything, like he's going to want to run that ball. And we have the players to be able to do that. But yeah, it's going to be different from a leadership standpoint in terms of coaching. Hey, I wish all of those other gentlemen success. They're going to continue their careers elsewhere and everything. And, again, Mario being just incredibly, I mean, yeah, he's notorious for his interview process being, super detailed and drawn out and, multi-leveled and everything like that, since he's built these. And I think that maybe it's not knowing what it is, obviously, on the inside. I feel like it's been built up a little bit artificially so it can be like noted as like this really intricate process. I think that maybe some of the elements could be trimmed down a little bit. But with that being how he does things, I think that the system is there to find good people and the people who will fit this organization, for right now, and then looking into the intermediate future, because I mean, let's be honest, in the world of college coaching, you're not really going to have guys there for that long. And I was excited to have Jahmile Addae coming back for another year and everything. But like, yeah, his ability and talent as a coach led him to bigger opportunities. So just like on the roster, in the coaching ranks, looking for the next one, elevate, upgrade, work together, and then, yeah, be prepared for whatever comes next.
Falconer TRX leading us off, of course, with the super sticker. Thank you so much for being here. As always, we do appreciate you. And we also have coming in from Falconer on UCF guys, Bridgewater as Miami Northwest head coach could help.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this, but Teddy Bridgewater has called it a career in the NFL, and said it in like October, and with the intent to move back to the city and take over as head coach at his alma mater, Miami Northwestern Senior High School, which is on 79th Street, which is south of Miami Central on 95th Street, but I digress. But yeah, so that has been officially announced from Miami Northwestern and everything. And yeah, Miami Central has eclipsed them as the big bad bully in the city. And so, you're going to bring a player with, All-American credentials in college, was on pace for a very good career, and had a couple injuries, unfortunately, that curtailed some of that in the NFL. Coming back, and he's like, "Yo, like I've done it. I've been to all these places that you want to go, and really trying to rebuild, the gold and blue, the brand of the Bulls down there on 79th Street." So it will be interesting to see how that goes for him as he transitions from player to coach. Which does make me feel old because I remember when he was like a sophomore in high school. But hey, it is what it is, and everything. I know you know as well. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Miami Northwestern has been trying to catch lightning in a bottle for a while. They've been maybe a little bit. They've been less patient than I think they should have been, and I think that they also hold themselves. Miami Northwestern thinks very highly of itself. I will say that they do not lack for self-confidence. Whether that is always warranted or not is a discussion for another time. But if anybody has a high opinion of themselves, it is Miami Northwestern Senior High School, on a variety of fronts. But it'll be interesting, because they're going to have to give him some time, because I know that Miami Central was not, or they had their winning streak broken this year, their streak of state championships and everything, but like that's still the big bad bully, and you got to play king of the hill. You know what I mean? To get to the top, you got to go through Central. That's how it goes right now. And I know that those rivalry games are heavily contested and everything, but like those players, you're fighting for the same players, literally. I mean, like I said, one's on 79th Street, one is on 95th Street. Not far away, guys. So, you're playing fighting for the same pool of players. You have a high school transfer season anyway. So like, do you get those dudes, or do they go to your rival school, and who do you build in your staff, and how do you do things? So it'll be really, really interesting. That's one of the things I'm really, really looking forward to seeing this high school football season. I will definitely be making my way down to Traz Powell to see a Northwestern game. I don't know if I'll be there for, Central versus the West, but I'm going to definitely go down there and see the West in person this year.
Help me out on this one. So every day that I prepare for this show, and every show I pretty much rely on Cam, of course, but I want to come prepared with topics and some knowledge of what's going on. So I do my internet search and I look around and figure out what's going on. So I came across Nico Smith, a quarterback. Okay. I do not see him on the commitment list for 25. So then I went to 26. Then I went back to 24. Then I see on his Twitter page, Canes football quarterback commit 24. Who are we looking at here? I don't see him on the commitment list for the 2024 Miami Hurricanes on 247 Sports.
So with all of that said, what does that lead you to believe about his status?
That he is changing grade levels to...
No, he's active grade level.
Okay.
So if he's not listed anywhere and it's a thing, probably a walk-on.
Okay.
And a preferred walk-on or whatever, like a guy that, was invited. But like, yeah, I mean, look, good for him. Hey, I'm wearing my University of Miami gear. I have I don't know if you can see it, but that's my School of Music t-shirt from when I was in the School of Music at the University of Miami. I love the University of Miami. I graduated from there. It was a dream school of sorts. It was my number 2 school behind Vanderbilt. I've told that story, but like I wanted to go there. I love my experience there, and people who want to follow in that and be a student there and like have the experiences, I do not begrudge that to them. And like, hey, celebrate it, do all of that. Congratulations, you're going to a wonderful institution, and I hope that you get every experience that I had that was positive. I hope you have that and more, and all the ones that were maybe a little bit negative, I hope you don't have those. Honestly and truly. In terms of football, you're not playing. Like, let's be honest. Like, it's going to be, he's a camp arm. He's another guy. He can, get the gear, go around, be in the practices, learn more, get your sports administration degree. If you want to coach eventually, this is a great way to, get things. I was talking about when I worked at Interlochen Arts Camp. I worked in the camp life division, like the cabin division, not the music division. But when I had free time during the day as a as a college junior and senior and like early into my career, I went and I sat in all the rehearsals that I could, and I just took notes. Why? So I could learn all the techniques and things, and that was the value that was added. And you're going to be able to get that, in a football sense there and everything. So I'm not trying to take away, like, hey, it's hard to get into the University of Miami. It was hard when I went there, and it's harder now to get in. So, and as a walk-on, there is no variance, right? It's not like, oh, when you're an athlete, like a scholarship athlete, they can tweak some things. As a walk-on, you got to get into the school, my boy. And look, congratulations to you. But yeah, in terms of football, like, this will be the only time that his name is mentioned, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
But hey, again, congratulations on so many different levels. Like, great stuff. And whatnot, but like, yeah, he's not going to play meaningful. He's not going to play a snap, not even a meaningful snap, just not, no. But I need to save Cam Ward or the scholarship quarterbacks and everything. You need somebody to run that, thing on scout team, and it's early in camp, and I just need passes thrown as we're working everybody in, and you got 50 passes in your arm that we're not putting on our star quarterback. That's who that is.
Did you hear about this Kirk Herbstreit phone call that was made to Dylan Raiola's family concerning his recruitment? This came out. This came out today. It's on SI. It was brought to my attention on our previous show that Kirk Herbstreit called Dylan Raiola's father about the possibility of him flipping from Georgia to Nebraska, and basically sold him on Nebraska being where he needed to go. And there being some quotes there about this is where he really needs to go. Matt Rule's a special coach, and it's just kind of an odd story.
Very much so, especially since like Raiola is a legacy name at the University of Nebraska to begin with. His uncle is on staff there. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been one thing if it was like Kirk Herbstreit calling me and my family, right? Be like, oh yeah, like you should go over here somewhere else. But somewhere where his father played with his uncle, that's a legacy name, one of the last legacy names that played for that school, and his uncle is currently on staff there. Seems fishy to me, but again, I am today years old, just now learning about it. But yeah, interesting in general, though, that even that's out there, but interesting.
All right, folks, we have run through the news here on the Miami football front on a Wednesday night.
I will say one other thing that I saw that is not surprising, and I was actually thinking about this player after last week's show. Spoiler, shocker, Brashard Smith officially is transferred to SMU. So Miami continues to feed speed players to their roster. I mean, the two locations that Miami players have transferred recently have been SMU and Louisville. Like, and I know that Louisville recruits South Florida better than does SMU, because SMU is going to focus in, the Dallas area metroplex, as they should. But Lashley was here for a couple of years, so he's like, hey, come on down, Romello Brinson and Jalen Knighton and, now Brashard Smith and Khalil Brantley and a bunch of dudes on the defensive side of the ball. Elijah Roberts was like player of the year defensively in their conference and whatnot. So, but I was thinking about, I was like, I don't think that I've seen him sign, but I think he's probably going to go somewhere like that, and did. And look, he's going to be successful there. Rhett Lashley, if nothing else, knows how to get guys in space with the football. We talked about it when he coached here. You can see it in his offenses there and everything. So, good for Brashard Smith to find a spot where he thinks that he fits. I would have liked to still have him as an option on this roster. But I understand why he was looking for maybe a little bit more, a larger role and things like that. But I was not at all surprised when I saw that, because I was literally thinking after last week's show, I was like, did he transfer somewhere? He went to SMU, right? And I looked it up and it hadn't happened. And then officially they announced it on signing day today that he is signed to go there along with several other former Hurricanes. So that will be interesting. I don't remember the first time that we are going to play them in the future, but I don't know if he'll be there, but we'll see.
Falconer coming back with this one. Alonzo Highsmith to Patriots, A+ or minus? Oh,
yeah, positive or negative
for Miami.
Right, for Miami. In general, losing somebody of Alonzo Highsmith's, caliber, pedigree, experience, and success, in general, is going to be a negative for me. Now you can debate the levels of it, and again, like I said, I think that the scope of his role has changed or did change with Cristobol coming on board, so it might be less of a negative. I think it. You asked me on my opinion. My opinion is it is a smaller negative now with the shortened role responsibilities than it would have been had this happened when Manny Diaz was the coach. When I think that the role was larger in the operations of the program. So yeah, and again, like, he's been successful at a high level on and off the field for 50 years. You know what I mean? Like, losing somebody like that in the institutional and just operational knowledge, I would say is a general negative, but like not one that I think is going to curtail the operations or success of the Miami Hurricanes moving forward this year.
So it comes as no surprise that Mario Cristobal wants a lot of control. And so that's what I was reading into your statement initially about Alonzo Highsmith having less of a role than he originally did under Manny Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that as that being a positive, that you have the faith and trust in Mario Cristobal going beyond his coaching duties, especially in this ever increasingly complicated world of college football, and taking on maybe more than is wise?
In for a dime, in for a dollar. Like, we fired a decently successful coach. Wasn't necessarily championship level, but like, Manny Diaz wasn't the worst coach that we've seen. You know what I mean? But like, you get him up out of there, you do all these other things and whatnot. So like, you believe it or you don't. And so like, I'm just saying, yeah, like you gotta go with the whole picture with Cristobal. So, if you're in for the dime, then I'm in for the dollar. So like, if this is how he wants to run it, and again, like we talked about how it was a, raise it to the ground and re-pour a new foundation as opposed to just like, tweaking paint colors on the trim or something, as terms of the sprucing up of this program. So like, operationally, it's completely different. The structure is very similar, but has had some tweaks. So I don't necessarily think it's too much. I mean, like, is the operational stuff going to curtail Mario from developing as an on-field, in-game coach? That's the concern. You know what I mean? Like, if you want someone to build a program, like, Cristobal knows how to do it. He was there with Saban. He went and obviously I'm not saying that he built Oregon, right? But he made Oregon into his image and everything. So he tweaked that and whatever, because that was a more functional organization, but, had them at high operations to the point that Dan Lanning has taken that and continued that because he left him with a wonderful operation and everything. Not saying that Lanning hasn't made tweaks, because he has, but he was left with a high caliber organization there. So yeah, I don't think that he's biting off more than he can chew, but like from an organizational standpoint, but does he with that have the room for real self-study and improvement as an on-field in-game coach? Because that is the thing that is holding everything back. We're going to go recruit these guys. We're going to hire a all-star staff. We're going to get the best coaches that from all of these things of talent acquisition and structure. There are few of the caliber of Mario Cristobal. But it's funny, I was talking, shout out to my boy Fred, I know he's going to watch this, but we were talking on the phone earlier today. Clemson is looked at, and this will make sense in a second. Clemson is looked at as one of the favorites in the ACC. For why? Don't think that they have the dudes anymore. Don't think they really have anything else, but they're getting a game or two bump for the lifetime achievement or recent achievement of Dabo Swinney and the accomplishments that he's had. Conversely, for Miami, right, the talent is there. You got the number one quarterback, like returning in the country, probably. I mean, he's top 2 or 3, right? He was number 4 in yards per game last year. I actually just had this up. Let me go make sure that I have that stat right. National passing. Cam Ward was 4th in the country with 311.3 yards per game passing last year. The 3 people in front of him, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels. Hello, guys. Right? So this is the guy that you get. You have this wide open ass schedule. You got 5-star blue chip kind of talent everywhere, right? And when the number comes out for over under, it's probably going to be what, 8.5, maybe 8, right? But that's probably a game or two depression or lowering regression from what it should be. Why? Because of Cristobal's struggles as an on-field in-game coach. And that's how important that part of things is. So you can do all the organizational things, and I think that he does, and he handles those and operates those well. But unless or until you get better as an on-field coach, it's still going to show up in a negative way, as opposed to Clemson, where, like, respectfully, the golden age of Clemson is over. They're still a very good team. They can and will beat you. They're still a very good team. But this is not national championship peak golden age Clemson anymore. Ain't no Deshaun Watson. Ain't no Trevor Lawrence. All those things that we've been talking about for years, where they hit on every recruit. They had perfect development. They barely had any injuries. The one injury they had was Mike Williams, but then they had other dudes at wide receiver that year. They had generational quarterback after 1 year of Kelly Bryant, after generational quarterback, and all those things. That golden age is not here anymore. Yet and still, they're looked at in a very positive light because of the successes of that coach, what he's done on field in game, and Mario Cristobal has had the opposite effect with this team. And that's the part of running everything that I think needs more attention, rather than, okay, I'm taking this big role organizationally because he's proven that he can handle that part. I need you to handle this part on, 5 acres of grass, 53 1/3 by 120 yards, including the end zones. That's the part that I need you to get better at, buddy.
Yeah, Clemson is coming off of, off the top of my head, 9-3, 10-2, 8-4 the last 3 seasons, with postseason losses after averaging roughly a loss per year for 6 seasons, 7 seasons. All right, so I had one question in my pocket, but I'm going to hit you with this since you brought up Clemson. So you would roughly put Clemson and Miami's rosters currently going into this season on the same tier, just the roster talent, production, ability.
Miami above Clemson in that tier, but yes, in the same tier. Sure.
Okay. Next question would be, in terms of Mario Cristobal, whether you gave him just a complete blank slate when he walked on campus and thought, I'm strictly evaluating him now for what he does here, or you had, let's say, I would guess it would be a more favorable impression than it would be a negative impression based on what he accomplished at Oregon. What has been your general timeline of his good favor or negative favor in your eyes? How is that? What are the peaks? What are the valleys? Where do you stand on Mario Cristobal in your evaluation of him running a program today versus when he started? And what have been those high moments that have given you pause for, okay, he is the man, this is going to happen, versus the valleys where you've thought, I have my questions, my concerns?
The peaks are National Signing Day, all 3 of them, bringing in, elite talent. I know the first class was, very small because, he got hired in January, but fine. Or December, whenever it was, but, not long before the February signing day, but after early signing, or right at early, 2 days before early signing, whatever it was. Anyways, it was a short time. But yeah, the talent acquisition days, the signing days, high note. The Texas A&M game this past year, high note, absolutely. You go toe to toe with a very talented team. You beat them and everything. So that was a high note, and you really love that. The overall trajectory, I would say, positive, especially because we have more wins year over year since he's been here. However, the Georgia Tech game, the low. I mean, that's an all-time joke. That's an all-time fuck up. You know what I mean? You snatch defeat from the hands of victory, and then it's just but again, that just shows the lack of acumen as an on-field coach, and then he starts the press conference by throwing Don Chaney Jr. under the bus, and then saw his brain and said, "Well, we coach two hands on the ball, but it's my fault and everything, and then the whole we have processes in place. So what's the process? Well, we're not going to go into it. So how did the process fail? So what are we going to do about that process if we have processes in place and you didn't call that timeout and you didn't do those things?" And then he wants to be like, whatever. Okay, was it Coach Dawson then? It was my call. So you were trying to get the kid 100-yard game for vanity instead of just kneeling. Well, I'm sorry. It's almost I waxed poetic about this for a while on the Basketball Conference podcast because Joey and Mike, and Joey is an alum of Georgia Tech. So after that game, they were waiting to go live, and Mike was the co-host of the show. He was just like, "Click it, go live right now." Just gonna want to hear the reaction. And when he had me on for the season recap, we talked about it. But that's just such a crater, that's the gulf at the bottom of the ocean. That one is just because if you can do that, right, it's the inverse of that player who normally runs 4.42, 4.4 flat, and one time runs 4.2 flat, laser timed. So you're like, you got that in you. So I'm trying to bring that 4.2 guy all the time because you just show me you can do it once. So I need it all the time. For me, in the back of my mind, Cristobol, you're doing these other good things, and we're trying to wall off the moron that we saw from the Georgia Tech game. So that's a negative. Continuing to lose to Florida State, negative. It's not in the same way as Ohio State and Michigan where it's a one-game season, but that game matters more, and you got to stop losing that game. I get that they were all in on everything last year. Buddy, hell or high water, win this year. Continuing to lose to North Carolina, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say about North Carolina, but it also informs then the state of affairs at Miami. That's an extra regular-ass Carolina team. They're not special at all. They lose to also-ran teams. They barely struggle against Appalachian State. You got these lower-tier ACC teams beating them on the regular. Virginia, win. You got all that, right? But every time Carolina Blue plays orange, green, and white, they're the Monstars, 5 in a row and 7 out of 9, right? They look like they're Gulliver, stepping on the people of Lilliput, the Lilliputians and everything. There's okay, yeah, you can't stop me, layup, dunk, touchdown, whatever you want to call it, when they play us, right? They're Popeye with all the spinach when they play orange, green, and white, but they're a extra regular-ass team when they play everybody else. So then that also says, who's Miami? If this extra regular-ass team is beating you 5 in a row and 7 out of 9. True and correct. But the fact that has continued, that's one of the craters and a negative for me, because eventually you got to – Mac Brown is a fine head coach. I'm not going to say that he's bad or anything. But 5 in a row and 7 out of 9, miss me with that, bro. But the bad things are really bad. The good things, especially in terms of talent acquisition, are pretty great. But as I've gone through this answer, the majority of the positive events are off-field things, and the majority of the bad events are on-field game results. And eventually, the off-field wins and positive results has to improve and affect in a positive way the on-field results. And that's a perfect example of the kind of experience and dichotomy of the experience of having, I said experience twice, sorry, but of having Mario Cristobal as your head coach. Signing day, you're tap dancing, doing backflips and cartwheels, but then random Saturdays during the fall, it's, we lost to Georgia Tech, or it's another year that we lost to Carolina, or you know what I mean? That's how I view things. But in general, positive, because the main thing was changing the structure and the composition of this the structure of the organization as a whole and the composition of this roster. But again, still up on stateoftheu.com, the recruiting rules that I wrote going on 5-6 years, it might be longer than that now. But the last recruiting rules, you have to win. You've got to do, you can do all this other stuff, but if you don't win games, then you watch Jahmile Smith sign and go and put on somebody else's jersey, right? You're going to have all these things. You can only do but so much, but you got to win these games. And that's the thing. If it doesn't happen this year, I'm going to have real serious concerns about the ability for it to happen with Mario Cristobal moving forward, because it couldn't be more perfectly lined up. It really could not.
Especially against the schedule they're playing, which Cam and I broke down a couple of weeks ago.
Also, I did look up in the interim, Miami goes to SMU in 25. So Brashard Smith could still be there. And I'm sure that, he would love nothing more than to have a big game against his hometown team.
The screw up against Georgia Tech doesn't even need to be addressed. So that's obvious. That's just a complete, as Cam has stated. The reason I bring it up is beyond that. What I didn't like was when I watched the post-game news conference, I was thinking, okay, is he telling the truth or is he lying? But regardless, one of two things is true. Either he was clueless about the situation, he just missed it. He just completely missed that. Well, I guess three things could have been in play here, because you are pointing out the pursuit of getting 100 yards for
Donald Chaney Jr.
Donald Chaney.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, if what he is telling us, again, whether it's the truth or a lie, he either, as the head coach, was, I can't imagine Mario Cristobal would be too shy, too lackadaisical to not intervene and just allow things to happen. One version of it was that he just kind of let things play out, and that's not my job. And well, of course it's your job. You are the last bastion. It all rides on your shoulders. You are the guy that is supposed to, if anything else is a definition of your job on the field, it's to prevent losses. It's to guarantee a sure win is going to be just that, when double zeros hit the scoreboard. Or whether he was too, again, not assertive enough to take action, or whether his football brain was not working and he froze and he just missed it.
I will say this in terms of I missed it. You cannot fashion yourself to be the most detail-oriented, fastidious person in the world, right? That you know everything about everything in your program, that you have this exhaustive interview process that we alluded to earlier, that you know everything about everything, right? You know which players switch out their shoelaces on a Tuesday. You know everything, right? But then in the biggest moment of a game, you don't know anything. You can't have it both ways, my boy. You cannot be, I'm the coach who knows every single thing about my program, all the way to, I'm Michael Corleone, right? I know everything that happens in the organization. I know who you had meetings with. I know who they had meetings with. I know who their daughter, sisters, cousin, I know all of that and everything. I have all that knowledge because I'm fully dialed in. Huh? What? We're not supposed to take, wait, we're coming out in pistol and not kneeling. Huh? What? I don't know anything. You have built a career proving and saying that you're otherwise than that. So I'm not going to believe you all of a sudden. It's like, I big dumb jock. I play O-line. I don't know anything. No, you cannot have that. You cannot have that because from the moment the first, you've said that you're not that person. And that's why I was doing this, which means that you're lying to my face and you're insulting my intelligence. And that's why I was fucking pissed. Like you can't, because you're not. And you've gone out of your way, even when unasked, to say, I know every single detail. I know all of this. I have this knowledge. I'm dialed in. This is the process. I know it all. And then, oh, I didn't know. You can't. No, absolutely not. And I'm not going to cut you the slack of being a young coach, right? And saying, okay, well, this is the first time you learn and you grow from that. Like Manny Diaz, when he was talking about it's hard to win because he went 0 for 5 after bye weeks through his first couple of years, right? It's like, the process of the bye week, and I'm trying to figure that out because I haven't done this before. It sucked, but there was a measure of understanding and saying, okay, now you have to stick with something and get a consistent process. You're not getting that benefit of the doubt from me. And I'm not going to believe it when you just try to, oh, shucks, your way through things. No, you messed up. Sit there and, chest to eye, like whatever, chin up and own that. But don't sit here and try to say, oh, well, I don't know. The detail might have gotten away from me. And da-da-da-da. You're the guy who's always said that no detail ever gets past you. Right? It's like, Finding Forrester. I don't know if you watched that movie, but like the kid, he's a basketball player in the Bronx. He goes to a private school. He's really smart. He reads all the books and everything. And he goes over to Claire Dames' house because it was in the early 90s, yada, yada, yada. She has to study for a Shakespeare test. And then he's like, oh, one of the answers in the thing that the teacher always asks is like, when did Sherlock Holmes first meet Watson? And so Buddy's read all the books and he's like, oh, it was at this place at this time. So I've read all the books. I know all the details. And then later when talking about their relationship, he's like, I don't know what you mean. I forget details. And she's like, how do you talk about forgetting details when you remember something from page 43 of one of the 947 books that about Sherlock Holmes was written? You remember those details. You can't sit here and say all of a sudden, I don't remember details. Same exact thing with Cristobol. You cannot say that because the whole time you've said, I'm the guy who knows all the details and I don't forget anything. So in that moment, shut up about it. Take the L, own your mistakes, and don't try to sit here and lie to my damn face. That's what gets me angry about it.
I'm with you. And if I had investment in the situation, I would be angry as well.
Good movie, though. Sean Connery, Rob Bell, Claire Danes, Sean Connery. Finding Forrester. You should look it up. And there's 2 choir scenes in there, by the way, also. Come on, guys.
You got it all there. And then for me with Mario, and I know you explained this and your thought process on the approach of this program when he took it over was he is tearing it down and building it back up so it could look messy the first year. Mm-hmm. But for me, I just couldn't get past, you got top 15 talent.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you're trying to reinvent some things. You're trying to change culture. You're trying to do all these things different, but how do you explain Duke? You get blown out by 3 scores and you turn the ball over 8 times. Middle Tennessee, they had more Keystone Cop moments in that season than anybody in the country.
You're right.
They had the worst, as we discussed at one point, the worst point differential as a favorite game to game than any team in the country. Yeah. Just repeatedly.
Yeah. I mean, and especially buoyed by that Middle Tennessee game where we were 3 touchdown favorites and lost by 4 scores, and gave up 40 in most of the games at home in Hard Rock Stadium. It was until this past year that we had won a conference game at home. You know what I mean? Like, a lot went wrong. But yeah, again, it's the disparity between recruiting wins and talent acquisition versus actual team performance. And like, I think that the Clemson game was a highlight. You find a way to win that game. I said it like that week that showed a little bit of growth in game operations and management. So we have gotten to the point where the second half early timeout early in the third quarter that's been erased from operations, mostly. So I'm going to knock on wood because it could rear its ugly head. But I'm fine early in the game of like, okay, it's the first drive, call timeout real quick. Hey, let's dial in. Let's change a couple of things because like what they're doing is very different than what we thought, and they're gashing us and everything like that, especially defensively. Cool. I'm fine with that one. But the second half one, because the timeout going into the fourth quarter is infinitely more valuable. But we've seen development there. Also in that game, there was a couple timeouts that were called on defense to give Lance Guidry the opportunity to get into the right play. And he did. Because remember, we had to come back in that game to tie that game. So there were a couple big third downs. It's okay, we're going to call a timeout here, going to get to the right play, and did. And then when that happened in overtime, I started, complaining and I said, wait. The last two times this game, that there's been a timeout before a big defensive play, Cristobol's gone over to, you've seen him, he literally goes over to the huddle, rah, sis, boom, bah, coach, you got it, and step back. And every time Lance Guidry got to the right play, and that was before the fourth down, the game-winning play with Corey Flagg, who I believe also is going to SMU, but whatever. But I said, cool, I'm going to trust that this is another instance where this timeout gets us to the right play and gets the win, and it did. So you're seeing a little bit of development and things like that, but like, again, if I'm talking about the couple of times, it's not enough. I love the Texas A&M, Shannon Dawson. Hey, coach, are we going to run the ball? And he's like, hell no, I'm going to chuck it up there. We're going to win it right now. I love that. But there have been glimpses of development and improvement from an on-field standpoint. But there's, again, like Robert Frost says, miles to go before we sleep, miles to go before we sleep.
And the other concern connected to what I just brought up about the debacle of 2022 is that I tend to look for historical examples and try to make analogous situations to try to determine, okay, how many times has this happened in the past at other places, and what great coaches that eventually got there struggled early and all those things. And it's tough to find a great coach who didn't make an immediate impact.
Yeah, no, I have no controverting statement, which also then, with that being true, right? So Mark is saying great coaches got places, immediately that place was better and they started winning games. That does not necessarily happen here at Miami. True. I do not have anything to controvert that. Spin that forward then. This cake puff schedule with this elite talent and the number one returning quarterback in college football, because again, the other guys who were better last year are gone. You gotta win now. Because if not now, when? And if not this setup, when you miss SMU, you miss North Carolina, the thorn in your side, right? You miss, who was it? Clemson. Right? So again, we missed Louisville this year?
I think so. I'll pull it up.
I'll think
double check. And I was going to make a comment real quick about the schedule. I did a schedule analysis after our conversations. I went through the entire ACC, and really Miami plays kind of the mush in the middle. They also miss the bad teams. So they missed 3-9s. I don't believe they play Virginia, who went 3-9. Pitt, who went 3-9, and somebody else went 3-9. Oh, one of the Californians, Stanford, went 3-9 last year. So they missed the very worst. If we think things will stay the same, but they also miss, aside from Florida State, pretty much anybody that's projected to be at the top of the conference.
Yeah, no, we play Louisville the week before Florida State. I was like,
okay.
They're on the schedule this year. But I mean, like, again, man, it has to be now, right? And again, the fact that, to Mark's point, most great coaches get places and immediately start winning. That did not happen here. For whatever reason and whatever narrative, we're like, hey, but like, it has to be now. That makes it even more imperative that it's now. And you're missing a lot of the teams that have been, not even traditionally, but recently troublesome for you. Because, like we beat Clemson by a point or 3, whatever, we beat Clemson, but before that, they'd blown our doors off 937-12 over the last 4 or 5 games preceding that. Again, 5 out of 7 and 7 out of 9, you missed North Carolina. I mean, like, guys, it has to be this year. It absolutely does. And the fact that it has not, and when most great coaches get places, that's when they start winning. The dearth of winning previously makes it infinitely more important that this year in 2024, you figure it out and you get the wins. And look, injuries happen. Bad luck happens. You already know that there's going to be terrible refereeing that's going to negatively affect Miami. That's just a constant state of affairs in life, right? Fine. Hell or high water. You got to figure it out. You got to make it happen. And I agree with what you said, and I just think it puts even more of a spotlight on this upcoming season that there is the success that we have not had. Because then after this year, right, and who's our non-conference? Oh, Florida in the opener. But in 25, USF, Florida, Notre Dame, Florida State, Louisville, NC State, they've been a problem. Stanford, Syracuse, Pitt, that's been a problem. At SMU, that's been, or who knows what that'll be. And then the traditional second rival at Virginia Tech. Look, man, that schedule is more challenging than this. So you have to, I'm not saying, especially because we didn't spend in the NIL and we didn't get to the level of other teams. We did spend some, because I'm not going to sit here and say that Cam Ward came here and didn't get paid. Like, please, whatever. I've seen rumors that it's like, $1 million or $2 million or whatever, but a discount, a value at twice the price for that player at that position, I believe. But like, Ole Miss went all in this year. FSU went all in last year. I think that there's a measure of spending that would even need to be increased for Miami to go all in, because again, you haven't really gotten a number 1 wide receiver. You missed on, J4. You missed on other guys in the portal. Why? Because you did not have a quarterback at the time. You're probably going to spend more money in the spring window. You got a top tier cornerback who wants to come down. You're going to spend for that, right? Depending on who the coach is. If you can get a number 1 wide receiver, you're going to spend the money for that. But I mean, even if we're not, okay, pre-flop all in like every single chip, like there's only a short stack remaining. Like Miami's put a lot into the season with the recruiting the last couple of years, which obviously has NIL going with it. I see in the Canes Connection NIL group is putting out their affiliations with these players now that they're enrolled on campus and whatnot, like that are in this recruiting class. But then, yeah, like I said, you go and get the number 1 quarterback returning in the country. You have this relative. I mean, we all made fun of Georgia's schedule last year for a championship contender. Like, I know that Miami is not on Georgia level right now, but the caliber of schedule that Miami plays in 24 versus what Georgia played in 23, equally laughable, but with a team that's not as dominant. So, I mean, like, yeah, but I mean, dude, you got it. If not now, when? But for my money, I would like it to be now. Please and thank you, Mario.
No Clemson, no North Carolina, no NC State. That was the other usually upper division team that they miss. And we can finish the night with this one. This is a good one. The most talked about individual on the planet right now, Duncan or TRX. I can't wait to hear this.
Oh, man.
Can Cam please comment on Taylor Swift's vocal quality?
She has a nice voice. It's not the biggest voice in the world, which I don't think it has to be. But like, it has good athleticism to it, and I say that because like it is an athletic movement to traverse the vocal range of your voice, like to go high to low, low to high, like all these different things you can do with it. It is acrobatic, athletic, however you want to describe it. But yeah, I mean, she has good athleticism with her voice. She knows her range really well, so there's usually not a mismatch between what she's able to do and what she writes or what she tries to do vocally. For an example, Alicia Keys has a low voice. She has like an alto voice. It's always been a meme. And she would always try to sing these high soprano, mezzo kind of things, but that's not what the good Lord gifted her. She should be singing melodies that are more Tony Braxton, you know, unbreak my heart. She should be doing those more things, but she wants to be up there. And I'm like, I get it, because like there's a power in high pitched voices, right? Just the fact that you can do it like brings notoriety. And Alicia Keys would try to do those things, but did not have the God-given talent to do that. And that was what the disconnect was with her in some of her even more iconic songs. You don't really find that with Taylor Swift, which I think is just being aware of yourself and what you can do. And there's something to be said for that. Really good songwriter, which I think gives her good content to emote on. She does emote very well as she performs, so she puts her own twist and style into things. One of my all the time sentiments in the world of music, not even as an educator, but just as things that I listen to and things that I enjoy. If I can't feel it, I don't want it. And it could be loud, soft, fast, slow. If it's just metronomic, where it's a virtuoso exercise. It's just like, oh, I can do this thing, but it's robotic and devoid of any kind of emotion. I don't want it. Taylor gives you the emotion. She goes there. She does put some affectations on certain things, especially for word painting to her text and things like that. So think of like the little growls on the R, like those kind of. I mean, I didn't do a great job of it right there, but like putting a little bit of emotion on like that one word kind of a thing. She does that pretty well. So she can hold a tune. She's really in control of her voice. She has a very great pop quality to it. It's nice and forward, present, resonant, which is what you're going to want in pop music. It's going to be a lot. So like pop music and performance is way more speech based than classical performance, right? So, classical, unbreak my heart. I'm going to put that back. But otherwise, or I'm just singing Unbreak My Heart, but it's just like, which one is I really don't even know many Taylor Swift songs off the top of my head. The one that The Rock sings in Ballers.
The one about James Dean and
yeah.
But that James Dean,
right, exactly. But it's that very, just like Mark did, it's that very forward, like it's very right there with it and everything. So I mean, I would have to listen to more to like dive really into it, but she knows what she can do. She does it pretty well. And she's just kind of, especially with her content, it connects with so many people, and it's just grown this fan base and everything. But yeah, she's a good plus singer. I mean, she's not like a legendary, I'm going to line up to hear her sing. You know what I mean? Like Paul McCartney at the Grammys years ago, he came out and he sang a song and he was just like, look, all I need is a melody and a microphone. And he brought out a stool and he just sat there and he sang, and it was incredible. Like, I love, oh my God, I forget the singer's name right now. Tori. Oh my God.
Tori.
Oh my God. I'm so bad. Tori Kelly. Thank God. Jesus, Google. Thank you. Tori Kelly. I would listen to her sing the alphabet. I mean, she has an incredible voice. Like, woo, my God, that woman can sing. And I would like her. Yeah, like she could sing. She could be reading from the dictionary, and I'm like, cool. Tori Kelly singing it. I got it. I'm in there. Taylor Swift doesn't have that kind of a voice, but she does have a great presence. She does have a good voice, and obviously does very well with it, and has a huge following, and understands to a level. I mean, it has unfortunately had to learn the business because of the master's situation with the other dude, which is why she's like, okay, cool. I'm going to re-record all of my albums, put a new little twist on it, and then like I'm going to make the money and like tell my fans, don't listen to the original version, listen to Taylor's version. So like a shrewd businesswoman as well. And taller than you think. She's like 6 feet tall. My goodness. But yeah, so that's my thought on that.
Interesting. I am surprised to hear you give those kind of accolades to Paul McCartney, because for as great as Paul McCartney is, I don't think of him as a vocalist.
I mean, like, I'm not saying that he was like the best ever, but like he performed the hell out of that song, and maybe it was just because of what he did. But I see a lot of performers nowadays. They want to lean into the other parts of the performances and not like their actual vocal abilities or their instrument or whatever. They're doing all these other things, and he's just like, I need a melody, I need a microphone, give me the stool, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it really well. Boom, it fits in my box of vocal range. It's something that I know really well, I can connect to, even if it's, you know, slow and everything. I'm gonna do that one thing, boom, and be excellent at it. That's more the thing, because yeah, some people are like, oh, like watch me dance and watch me do this and da 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 da. But then it's just like, yeah, but I can watch America's Best Dance Crew. I can pull up YouTube and I can watch Jabberwockies. You know what I mean? If I want to see dancing, like if I'm here for a vocal performance of like, can you do that? And some people lean into those other things a little bit more. Tailored more for the production standpoint of like her tour and everything, because like you do stadium tours and it's going to be huge production. But like, yeah, she's a solid, you know, B+, A- singer. I'm fine with it.
Wow, we got our money's worth on that one. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
And if you're like me, Cam, and you know a zillion times more about it and should be either enriched or frustrated by more so than I am, but I'm kind of a vocal snob to a certain extent. I think I got that from my mom. She taught piano. She was a pianist.
Oh, nice.
And I hear people on the internet, and then I see comments about how incredible it was. And I'm thinking, that wasn't good.
Look, and that's the thing that I dealt with when I taught, because like if you show any ability at all, then it's like you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And then it's just like, okay, cool. But everyone can get better. Everyone can get better. Like, I mean, even the best singers that you know, I mean, performing, studio performers, like famous I mean, Beyonce has a vocal coach, and Beyonce has an incredible voice. She's an incredible singer, right? So like, then it's just like, okay, breaking that down and be like, okay, everybody's always told you that you're incredible because like they wish that they had the gumption to get up on that stage and do that thing. It's like, okay, cool. But like, I think that you have a great voice, right? That your talent, your God-given ability is there, but we can build your skills and even unlock more in that. But then it's just like, well, everybody's always been on my YouTube videos telling me that I'm great. So like, why would I, da, 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 da? And, you know, I've seen some of that disconnect, but also just people are not discerning of what real quality is of any style, not necessarily, you know, of whatever. But like, yeah, I don't think that people really have that discerning ear or eye, because like, you know, I see some of these visual artist people on social media and I'm like, that's a thing that people want to pay for. Like, hey, but hey, maybe in that arena, I don't have the, you know, dialed in acuity that I do in the realm of music. But yeah, there's always room to grow is the point. So, you know, hey, we'll see.
Yeah, there's a large portion of consumers that can't even tell if somebody's off key or if they're flat.
Yes, fact. And while I hear any, like, the last thing before we go, because I know that we're ranting now, but when I took physics in high school, there was an oscilloscope, and the tuning note for most orchestra instruments is A at 440 hertz. So it's like that. But then on the oscilloscope, my teacher turned it up to 441 hertz, which makes it go a little bit sharp. And I'm like, in the back of the class, like Nort, can you? He's like, okay, like 442 and a half, and I'm like, that's not in tune. Like, can you please put it back to 440 so I can get it tuned? But yeah, that was just kind of a interaction I had along a similar path.
Awesome. I'm going to send you an email along those lines.
Nice.
That's Cam Underwood, State of the U. He's the best. We've got him here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. All right, Cam, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, sir.
All right, you guys too. I'll talk to you soon.